If you clicked on this, you're probably know what a commonplace book is already. And at its most basic level, it's a book of quotations that you are copying down from other sources. It's different from a regular journal in that it is a collection of ideas, usually from other people. You may take your own notes, but that's the basic idea behind a commonplace. So in its most basic form, it really is just a paper notebook. I've been thinking about this quite a bit, and I've thought of some ideas about how you can sort of change it up a little bit. Not that, a notebook and pen is ever going to get boring, but there are different ways to do this, and I wanted to have a discussion about that today. Idea number one is to get a special notebook, which a lot of people probably do. I know a lot of people like notebooks in an aesthetic sense. There's a million different notebooks you can buy. Some of them are very cheap, some are very expensive, and some people just collect notebooks for fun. I just have here a regular Moleskine journal. They're kind of like a medium price journal. I've been using these since college. I love them. They last forever. They're not going to get, damaged if you carry it around in your bag. The idea here is to have something that is set apart that's a little bit nicer than something you're just kind of scribbling down a note on. And I think a lot of people already have a nice notebook, but a lot of people have never had something like a nice pen before. And I hadn't either. And when I started thinking about it, I guess I sort of went a little bit down the pen rabbit hole. I mean, once again, just like a notebook, there are a million different choices of pens that you can buy, and some of them are very cheap. Most of us just grew up using plastic, 10-pack of pens that you can buy anywhere. And yeah, those are great. There's nothing wrong with doing that. But I kind of wanted to have a pen that would make it feel a little more special when you picked it up and you knew that this was a special time that you were writing in your Commonplace book. Not that I only use it for my Commonplace book, but basically I wanted a special pen to go with my special notebook. So I got this one. The brand is Parker, and it's called the Parker Jotter. I think was popular in like the 50s. I know a lot of doctors still use it. It's still very popular. You can buy them on Amazon. And it was about $12, I think, which definitely pricier than a plastic 10-pack that you can get for $5 worth of pens. But it's not so expensive that if you're gonna lose it, you would feel guilty about it. And I actually really do recommend this one. I think it's really nice. I actually just bought one for my husband for Valentine's Day because he kept asking me about mine. So I figured he probably wanted his own too. Idea number two, and this is totally the opposite of going the pen and paper traditional pen and notebook route, is to actually share your commonplace with the world. And I recently decided to start doing that. I made an Instagram account just to share my commonplace quotes. Just because sometimes you read something, you write it down, and you're thinking like, am I ever going to look at this again? Like, I feel like other people could benefit from this, or maybe it could spark thoughts in other people. I like the idea. Social media gets a bad rap, but there are some good that can come out of it. You can find out about all sorts of different things that you never would have found out about if it wasn't for social media. So I actually started an Instagram account. It's called Commonplace Quotations, and I'm just sharing things that I read, just like a commonplace book. But it's cool because other people can see it. And it's also, the other thing I like about it is that I have to keep going back to it, and I'm more likely to kind of review it if it's right there. I also think that Twitter would be almost a better venue for this than Instagram. There's already tons of Twitter accounts that just share quotes, but I think Twitter and Instagram are the two social media platforms. I guess you could use, I don't have TikTok, but you could definitely like set a quote over like a TikTok reel or whatever they're called, and get people thinking that way too. So that was another idea. So as an aside, I actually discovered this cool way of scanning text in a book with your iPhone. And if you go into the Notes app, there's a little camera button at the bottom. And if you long press that, an option comes up to actually scan text. You can actually just take your phone, take the book and scan it right there with your phone, and it'll make a new note out of it. So that's in the Apple Notes app. I don't know if there's a similar thing for Android, but I thought that was a cool feature and I didn't know about it until recently. Idea number 3, and this one is the most, would take the most dedication, but I think it could be a really interesting project. I actually just listened to an episode of a new podcast yesterday. It's called Proverbial. And the idea behind this podcast is it's a guy, I don't know if these are directly from his Commonplace book or they're just proverbs that he's heard for many years. But the idea is that every episode is a discussion of a different proverb. Not just proverbs like from the book of Proverbs in the Bible, but proverbs of all sorts. And I listened to one episode and it was very interesting. I thought that was a great idea. Basically, the idea is to start a podcast or write a book that is from your Commonplace book. So you wouldn't have to necessarily even limit it to just a book or a podcast. You could write a song, you could write a poem, you could do any number of things. But if you are feeling, like creatively motivated and you want a new project, I thought that could be a really interesting one, is just to revolve it all around your Commonplace book and do an episode or a chapter if you're going to write a book, if you're that ambitious, or an essay about each quote in your Commonplace book. And I actually think that, this has been done many times. I think that Meditations by Marcus Aurelius was exactly that. In the first chapter of that book, he's basically just revealing different things that different influential people in his life have said to him. And a lot of people say that that's a Commonplace book. So I think that is kind of the purpose of it, though, in a lot of ways, is not just to absorb these ideas into your mind, although that's a wonderful benefit, but to really take other people's ideas, there's nothing new, and make them your own. All art comes from other art, essentially, and I think that sometimes we have this pressure. We feel like there's this huge pressure on us that we have to be hugely original, and we have to come up with something completely original and new, otherwise everyone's just going to say they've heard that before. But you would be surprised that the things that you think are obvious or that you've known forever or you've been hearing forever, there's someone else out there that hasn't heard that before. It's really something that could be a great boon or blessing to others, to spread the wisdom.